Nice fish. Get it. Oh. Ooh, that was close.
Retro bassin', kicking some ass and wearing rayon jackets. Thinking about Bill Dance, watching these fish prance through my Ray-Ban glasses. Ain't nothing better than 40-year-old lures coming off of Zepco 33. Out on the bass boat, making beer cans float, doing some trespassing. Fishing it old school, this old stuff rules. Welcome to Retro Bassin'.
Welcome to Retro Bassin'. This week we are actually back in Texas in a new little area that I am not too familiar with. So I got on Google Earth and started searching for some different bodies of water, and I found a boat ramp right here on the Guadalupe River, a little section of the Guadalupe known as Lake Dunlap. I have never fished this body of water before, so I'm really curious to see what we're going to get into today. I've got the retro wagon hooked up here on the old Toyota. Gonna be dumping it in, and I've got about probably a dozen rods rigged up with some old school baits. Today I have no idea what kind of fishing we're gonna be getting into. This is a Texas lake, so I've got a feeling we're gonna have a lot of rocks, some edges, maybe a little bit of timber here or there. So I've got a pretty wide variety of baits. As far as a theme for this episode, we'll do a little bit of homage to the now defunct Mann's Bait Company. Like many of the Bassin buds, I was really shocked and honestly pretty bummed out when I found out that Mann's was no more. I've been scouring the country, hitting up just about every Bass Pro Shops that I can find to try to find any discontinued Mann's baits in the discount bin. I have found a bunch of them, a ton of jelly worms, 1-minuses, deep diving stretch 20s, and I'm gonna be putting those up for sale pretty soon on the old retro eBay site. But in the meantime, I rigged up just about every rod I could with a Mann's bait. I've also got, and I'll show you this, an old school Fenwick tackle box that I have filled up with nothing but Mann's baits. I've got everything from the 1-minus, I'm not sure how many 1-minus I'm gonna fish with today, but you never know, to the deep divers, to the spinner baits, and I've got a boatload of worms as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get the old retro wagon launched, start cruising on up the creek, and hopefully catch a fish or two on this new body of water for old retro. I don't know if you can hear that noise, but just above me is I-35, and it is just a little bit trafficy this morning. So I'm heading upriver here in my Child Small Life Vest. I feel like this is like a 1984 XL, but it barely fits me today. So I was talking to a new Bassin bud on the bank who apparently has been fishing this lake a pretty good bit. There is another lake upriver on the Guadalupe by the name, or Guadalupe if you want to say it properly, by the name of Canyon Lake, which unfortunately because of the drought in Texas has been unfishable if you need to launch your boat, because every single ramp on that lake is closed down. So he's been fishing this and he said he's actually done pretty well. Just looking around here, this is a very unique looking body of water. The water's nice and cool. I did feel it a little bit, and yeah, it's got a very Texas look to it for sure. So I mentioned I've got a number of Mann's baits tied on, and I do. I'll kind of go through this one by one, but I've got a couple of different top waters. I've got some jerk baits, some shallow, medium, and deep diving crankbaits, and you better believe it, I've got some Mann soft plastics, including a stingray grub and a jelly worm or two. All right, it looks like we've got a little bit of deep water ahead. Deep being relative, probably about 6 feet up there. So I'm gonna switch to this, a Mann's old school jelly worm. There's a super cool waterfall up ahead. I'll turn the boat around in a minute and let you guys get a look at that. Oh, ha, ha. All right. Let's see if the jelly worm can get one. How cool is that? All right, well, this water is kind of looking a little funky, so I think I'm gonna put on a funky color of jelly worm. Boy, you don't see it anymore, but back in the old days, the classic motor oil. I think that one might actually pop pretty well in this water. It's weird, it's clear, but it's cloudy. I don't know what you would call that. Maybe clear but cloudy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on an OG motor oil jelly worm. I don't have many of these left of this little 6-inch size. I think I've probably got maybe 10. So I use them sparingly, but today, Bassin Buds, I'll use one for you. I mean, if I catch fish, I'll probably use all 10, but you know what I mean. So there we go, a beautiful motor oil jelly worm. I don't know what it was about the motor oil. It was a cool color, but it bled like no other. If you happen to find any OG packs of motor oil worm, I don't care what the brand, if it was Mann's, if it was Culprit, if it was, well, pretty much any brand that you would find, give it a couple decades and that motor oil leaked out like, well, leaking oil. I just snagged something. I just saw a line on a bobber going by me. Oh, look at that. It's a whopper plopper. What's on the other end of this? If this is the only fish I catch, I'm gonna be a little bummed. That is the weirdest thing. I just saw this thing going down stream and I was like, well, I'll grab that. What the heck? All right, well that was it. Just a stick, no fish. But I did happen to snag a very nice looking whopper plopper. Funny thing, I was actually messaging, ooh, a fish has jumped. I was actually messaging Larry Dahlberg on Instagram literally like 2 days ago because I wanted to do a history of the lure that he invented, which is the whopper plopper. So I didn't catch a fish today, but I caught a plopper, so that's good. And that's like 30-pound line, holy smokes. Well, there we go, a beautiful bait from river to sea. That thing looks like somebody just lost it like 5 minutes ago. That is the cleanest found lure I think I've ever seen. Ooh, something just jumped. I don't claim to be a bass pro by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, I feel like I can catch fish, or at least feel like I'm gonna catch fish with a spinnerbait in a lot of conditions where I think folks don't throw them. I don't know if it's the fact that it's one of the first baits I figured out how to properly fish, but man, if I get just a little bit of a chop on the water, I feel like I can chunk and wind a spinnerbait and do some damage. Now, traditionally, I'll fish like a 3/8 ounce, even a 1/4 ounce spinnerbait, but I got a chance to meet the designer of this, Mr. Hank Parker, at the 2024 iCast. And what's interesting about Hank, and he's selling his own spinnerbaits now, called the Classic, is he actually prefers a 3/4 ounce bait. I don't think that he's necessarily fishing it deep. I think that's kind of what he uses to be able to throw up shallow and burn that thing back and keep it under the water. Ooh. This is a big profile. I'm not sure how big these fish are, but if there's a big one in this old lake, he's gonna smack this thing. Oh yeah, I don't know why I just love throwing a spinnerbait. Oh man. It's way too clear, it's way too small of a body of water, but I just don't care. Chunking and a winding. And by the way, Hank, I do not mind this 3/4 of an ounce. I'm throwing this thing up into about a foot, but I'm just ripping it back, and man, I am totally able to fish this thing. Woo! Got one. Oh, Mann's classic. Oh! Oh, I had one and he jumped off. Oh man. That was like an 8-pounder. 8-ouncer. But just the same, nice little fish. Coming up on a pretty cool spot here. You can see a few of the lily pads here. There's some shallow cover, which is kind of unique for these parts. So I figured I would throw on my Mann's classic once again. I had a feeling I was kind of getting a fishy spot. I was about to say something, and sure enough, he hit when I wasn't ready. There was a DVD, no, I'm sorry, there was a VHS I had a number of years ago, part of that Bass Pro Shops series, and it was a very young KVD pitching to heavy hitters, or I think it might have been called pitching and flipping to heavy hitters. And it was about, I think, throwing some different techniques. And I think he might have had a spinnerbait video, or it was a different one. But either way, I remember KVD was talking about the way that he throws spinnerbaits up shallow, and that kind of changed my spinnerbait technique big time. So ever since then, I kind of really thought of spinnerbaits as more of a flipping pitching lure for me, and that's kind of what I was doing here. Not effectively, but I at least got a hit, which was the first hit I've had in a minute. So I'm kind of just going up current now and fishing some of these little walls. I have not figured it out today, so I'm kind of just trying some different stuff. I got one bite in the pads. I've done well against these walls in the past, so we'll kind of give this one a shot. It's kind of just a blank wall with about 6 to 7 foot off the end of it, and a kind of a pier every once in a while. Oh, got one. What the heck is that? That is not a bass. Woo. But it's something big. Look at that beautiful sunfish. Oh my goodness, that is I think that's a long ear. Let me turn the old boat around so you can get a good look at this guy. Woo! Oh, don't pee on me. Don't pee on me. There we go. Ah, let's get a look at this dude. Ooh, that is a pretty long ear sunfish that smoked this deep razorback. I was kind of fishing these walls a little parallel, just kind of blowing downwind, and there he was. That's a honey of a little fish. He ate the bass I was looking for, but I'll take him. Oh, there's a fish. That might be a bass. Oh, that's a bass. Let's get him in. Oh, here we go. Ha-ha! Retro bassin. I'm not going to tell you the last time I actually caught a largemouth bass on this boat, but it has been... I'm not going to tell you. So let's get this guy unhooked before I hurt myself. Good looking fish, man. All right, so there we go. That is my first largemouth bass in this body of water. So I guess technically mission accomplished. I was working some lily pads over there. I had a fish probably about this size that I lost. And I got over to the other side of the creek or the lake, and I was kind of working this seawall, and I caught the fish right off a pier here. Throwing the Mann's deep razorback Nice fish. Let's let him go and get back in there. Man. Gotta love these Texas bass. All right, well, while we're getting into position, and I'm cleaning the slop off my hands, oh my gosh. Like, I don't know what I'd do if I had like a 20 fish day, because I feel like every fish gets me so discombobulated. Got schmutz on my glasses, schmutz on my hands. Anyway, as we're getting back into position, I will at least show you this rig that I just caught my last 2 fish on. So the bait itself is this, a Mann's Razorback, deep Razorback, in a nice crawfish pattern. And my rod and reel combo is courtesy of my buddy Todd over at BASSIN 101. This is a setup he sent me a few years back. It is a Daiwa MagForce anti-backlash reel. It's a HT1000. I'm not sure if he sent this or had this, but I know he sent this, the Apollo rod. This is a classic Daiwa. Let's see what the old specs are on this bad boy. So it's a graphite 5.5-inch rod. It's about as big as I like to throw these days. Lure 1/4 to 1 ounce, line 8 to 12. I think I've got 15 on here. Medium action, and of course, a glorious pistol grip. So that's the pier we caught the fish off of. So we're gonna swing around and kind of go back on in there. Oh gosh, nice fish. Get it. Ooh, that was close. Oh my goodness, that guy mucked up just about every inch of my carpet. I boat flipped him because I had a bad feeling he wasn't well hooked, and he wasn't. I flipped him, the Manns came off, hit me in the thumb, but I did not lose him, and there we are, bass number 2. A little bit better Texas bass, isn't it? Man, that's a pretty bass. What's so different about the Texas bass to the Florida bass I've been catching is just how light they are. You can just tell these things are living around some green, rocky waters. That was awesome. He came just off of, actually those steps right there, if you can see them, on the old Mann's deep Razorback. That's the only one I've got, so if I lose it, I'm in trouble, but let's let this bad boy go. What an awesome fish. Well, Bass and Buds, I think that just about does it for me here on Lake Dunlap. While I did not take the donkey land like small water charters, I do leave here with a little sense of pride that I was able to get on a brand new body of water for me and figure out a few things. I think I'll definitely be back on Lake Dunlap before too long, and I think I know what bait I'm gonna be starting with. By the way, if you're looking for some more old school content, you can click right here. Otherwise, I will see you right back here, same time, same place, if not sooner. And until then, keep that carpet side up, and definitely fish it old school.
Fishing it old school, this old stuff rules. Welcome to Retro Bassin.